where news comes first. This is ABC-7 Extra.
Good evening, I'm Saul Saenz, and this is ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition. All weekend long, I've had viewers come up to me and ask, so is there a shutdown order or not? Well, we hope to answer that question for you tonight. Thursday, County Judge Ricardo Samaniego announced a 2-week shutdown of all non-essential services, businesses like nail and hair salons, massage businesses, gyms, and in-person dining. All this in response to a record number of COVID-19 rising positive cases, record number of hospitalizations, and record number of patients in intensive care. However, Mayor DeMargo released a statement saying he was not consulted and wanted the Texas Attorney General to examine the order. AG Ken Paxton announced the judge's order had no legal standing, went against Governor Greg Abbott's order, and was therefore unenforceable. Mayor Margo held a news conference Friday reaffirming he did not believe the judge's orders could be enforced and that he would not call on El Paso police to enforce them. Margo invited members of the business community to talk about what impact a second shutdown would have on our local economy as a result of mass confusion over the order. Businesses are not adhering to the judge's order and some are being cited. And just this weekend, the county attorney wrote the judge's orders are valid and have legal standing. And on top of that, the judge's orders supersede the mayor's order. Joining us to talk about the shutdown order is the person who called for the shutdown, El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. My other guest is who participated in Mayor DeMargo's news conference, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce CEO Cindy Ramos Davidson. But before we continue, I want to let you know ABC7 Extra reached out to the mayor to participate in today's discussion. He released the following statement, and I quote, "A conversation should have taken place before the county judge made a decision on behalf of the city, and a live debate will only further politicize this unfortunate disconnect in communication. I will remain focused on adhering the spread of the virus, of addressing the spread of the virus without violating state orders, and I will continue securing healthcare resources needed for our community." So, on that note, Judge and Ms. Ramos Davidson, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. I'll start with you, Judge. The reason for the order, and did you at any point in time talk to the people in the medical community before you issued your shutdown order?
No, absolutely. I had been in touch. As you know, UMC is part of the county, and it's a county hospital. Obviously, working close with Jacob Cintron almost 2-3 months ago. So this was not a preparation that came when we had the peak. It was a preparation that had been evolving for quite some time now. And we kept seeing that trend going in the wrong direction. I reached out to other medical professionals. I finally had a discussion with county force, and they were very adamant about the fact that, we needed to do some drastic measures. And there's two things that were very important. One, did I have legal, I needed to have legal opinion to make sure that I would be. Now, I have every right to issue the order. There's no doubt in that. I mean, I have the right and the authority to issue the order, and that's what I did. I also have, I was able to get support and just try to do everything that I can to make sure that we're doing the right thing. I think that, if we're focusing on strictly the order and not the lives and people and what they're going through, and it's very difficult if you're not in the midst of these situations and hearing about deaths and trying to figure out and mitigate how your hospital can handle a saturation rate that we have, or you hear about the fact that we're starting to transport individuals to other cities, or that we're needing another morgue or a semi to provide more storage for all these souls, and then we have a backup of almost 150 to 200 investigation to see if they're going to be part of this COVID numbers. When you see the numbers like yesterday at 1,600, today 1,100, and you have to remember on a weekend we get very few. A lot of the private labs do not report. So this, it was a decision after really hearing what happened, what the medical societies were doing, the support that I got. It was not that difficult to understand that we could no longer have the status quo and keep going in the same direction.
Let's bring
If you remember, we already had a shutdown, and we had a shutdown when our numbers were very low.
Right.
They were very, very low. And the governor ordered a shutdown that you really didn't apply to us, but it applied to other parts of Austin, Houston, and so forth.
Right.
And we went with it. And so now we're not doing anything different.
If
There's
I may,
nothing in that order other than the curfew
right,
that says that I'm doing anything different that we haven't done throughout this whole ordeal since March.
If I may, Judge, let's bring in Ms. Cindy Ramos-Davidson, CEO of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. You saw what happened during that first shutdown, and you believe that this will cause even more harm?
I do. And, you know, we're not here to say what is the right thing to do. We're not here to encourage anybody to do anything to break the law. Our job is to share the voice of business because they don't feel they have a voice in anything that's been happening these 18 or so months. The shutdown, as we know, it has a ripple effect on everybody. And we know El Paso is a small business community, and many of them are still struggling from the closures in March and April. As they've expressed to us, any further shutdowns will cause a really break and permanently have them close. The challenge we have at Hispanic Chamber is we're here to communicate, educate, and inform everything we can so business owners can make the right decision for themselves, their employees, their customers. They recognize the critical nature of the numbers. They would be the first ones and are the first ones to step up. But their concern is why are all these challenges on the backs of small business when the numbers clearly show that the stores are the big box retailers, not the small mom and pop that has 4 to 1 employees. I have list after list after list of companies that are calling me that have gone from $72,000 to $3,000, from $20,000 to $1,000. And these are small mom and pops. They're nail salons and hair salons and tattoo parlors and insulation companies and childcare and restaurants, and where they want to do what's right and they're all are practicing it. Their biggest concern is nobody really sat down with them and said, okay, we're going to give you a grace period. This is what we're going to do. Help us figure out how we can best do that, because we really do have to shut down. And we know when we do, it's going to be a critical impact to your business. So help guide us in that decision. Okay. This is such a tough time for all our elected officials. Their choices are hard to make, and their responsibility is to the community. And that also includes small minority women and veteran-owned businesses who are about ready to close their doors permanently.
Well, we're gonna continue the conversation, but we're gonna take a really quick break. You're watching ABC-7 Extra. When we come back, even though the mayor's not joining us, we'll hear from him when he spoke during a news conference on Friday. You're watching ABC-7 Extra, where news comes first.
Congresswoman Veronica Escobar says that she cares for El Paso and will help our community. But as it turns out, Veronica Escobar is
la mentirosa, es Veronica Escobar, porque no puede, porque no quiere decir la verdad.
Please vote for Irene Armendariz Jackson for U.S. Congress.
I'm Irene Armendariz Jackson, candidate for U.S. Congress, and I approve this message.
Paid for by the Irene Armendariz Jackson Campaign for Congress.
The pandemic has taught us that what is most essential is being with our loved ones and having access to healthcare, food, steady income, safe housing, and technology. It has also taught us that our border community needs leadership that knows how to deal with the crisis. El Paso deserves a hardworking leader ready to face challenges with practical solutions and compassion. We need someone who is ready to fight for all El Pasoans in a more just future. I am Veronica Carvajal, and as your mayor, I will fight for you.
Does anybody want breakfast? Guys? Let's go! Guys! I'm leaving for McDonald's in 5 seconds. Why didn't you start with that?
There's a meal for every morning at McDonald's. Like right now, you can choose between the sausage McMuffin with egg, bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit, or sausage, egg, and cheese McGriddles and a side of hash browns for only $3. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Corruption, disgrace, a betrayal of the public trust. It's not a Washington story, it's Yvette HERRELL's. While in office, HERRELL secured over $1 million of our taxpayer dollars for her own company and an organization run by her own mother. It's why HERRELL's actions have been called egregious. Now she's taking tens of thousands from corporate PACs. Corrupt Yvette HERRELL would make Washington worse.
DCCC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition. Friday, Mayor DeMargo held a news conference to talk about the county judge's shutdown order. He said the following.
I'm the mayor of all those working today to put food on the table, to pay their rent and buy their medicines, who would be put out of work by the county judge's shutdown orders. Struggling families should not have to choose between following rules and putting food on the table.
Now, I want to remind our viewers, ABC-7 Extra did extend an invitation to Mayor DeMargo to participate. He declined, but I also want to let you know that we continue. He can call in anytime during the program, and we will include him in our conversation. For now, I want to welcome back to ABC-7 Extra El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. Also joining us is Hispanic Chamber of Commerce CEO Cindy Ramos Davidson. I'll start with you this time, Ms. Davidson. As you well know, the county attorney determined that the judge's order is valid, and it's also being enforced. Several businesses have already been cited, several restaurants. I believe it's Great American, Don Carbon, and another business. Now, with that in mind, will you continue to wait for legal advice, or will you adhere to the judge's orders?
Well, that's going to be an individual business owner's responsibility. Our job is to communicate and inform them and educate them about what all the orders are. And that's been the biggest challenge from the small business community, is they are absolutely confused with all the political moving around in the committee, from the county, from the city, from the state, from the federal government. They are so confused in who trumps who, literally. Who do they really respond to? And some of them are very confused about the fact that the county judge trumps everything else. Some of them don't understand how that works. And so they hear that it's not legal, then they hear it's legal, then they hear it's going to be enforced. You know, the challenge we have as a chamber is to how do we better help them navigate through all this and keep people safe, because we see the rising numbers. I think the bigger challenge is how do we bring everybody together as a convener and a connector to sit down and talk about with the business owners, because they know how to pivot. They're your best answer to how to get through this. And yet all of them have told me they've never had a voice at the table. Without us being involved and trying to be that voice to try to help share their message, they really felt like they have no lifeline in terms of where to go. And that's been the biggest challenge. I think bottom line is they're going to do what is right for their business. They're going to do what is right for the community, because after all, entrepreneurs can create anything. They are extremely incredible individuals. They're the ones who take the risks. They're the ones who actually do all the hard work. They're the biggest part of the business community, and yet they don't feel they have a voice in terms of their destiny.
Let's pose that same question to the judge. Judge, as you well know, there was the order that you put out. The fact that Mayor DeMargo came out and said, look, there is no legal standing on this, created a mass confusion. A lot of people don't know what to do. So the question is, will you all come together and stand and step and say, look, this is the order, this is what we need to do? Because, of course, Mayor Margo said one of the reasons that he came out and said that your order didn't have any standing was because there was no conversation between you two. Are you two going to come to the table and fix this?
You know, absolutely. But, you know, I'd like to, first of all, say about this, about the small businesses not having any voice. You know, the governor put together a task force, an economic task force that Cindy belongs to. And you know, every conversation was, you know, trying to do the best that we can. I think what was missing were the narratives of how to open or how to go back in case we have those numbers. When we talk about, you know, numbers coming at us within a week period, and people talking about that we weren't able to communicate, we weren't able to get their input. It was very difficult. When I went to the health task force, the United Health Task Force, they told me I didn't have time, that every single day that I waited was another impact of saturation. And I can tell you that we can come back on the economy, I can guarantee you, but we can't come back and save lives and all the people that are going to die in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I asked for a 2-week period. I can tell you, if the business community had come together and said, let's support 2 weeks, let's see what's going to happen, let's rally and see what happens at the end of 2 weeks, and you're in this situation, I could begin to understand that. Now, let me tell you, I have been a business owner for a long, long time, the majority of my life. My businesses are closed right now. Even within my franchise, they've opened up, and I've decided not to. So I know what it is for my employees to talk about why the others had not open and so forth. But I want you to do another survey, Cindy. I want you to do the survey of the number of employees that are in very vulnerable situations at their business. The number of employees that have thanked us for trying to do that because of their vulnerability, because of these things. I want to talk about the associations that allowed the Facebook and show restaurants with people hanging out and drinking. And I want to see the amount of energy that was taken to go to these businesses that were not complying. And the business world coming to me and saying, hey, you know what? Some businesses can go to 50 to 100 to 75%. Should there be some steps or some criteria that would keep them from going from that? And I know for a fact there was a lot of businesses that went from 50 to 75 that were barely making it. There's a lot of other communities that took a different focus. They're having gyms outside because a lot of money went to help them put gyms outside, umbrellas, heaters, all kinds of things that they did.
Yeah. And
help
Judge,
businesses survive this situation.
Right, Judge, we will give Ms. Cindy Ramos an opportunity to respond after the break. You're watching ABC-7 Extra. Still ahead, the judge's orders are being ignored by some businesses, potentially because of the confusion. Some businesses are already being cited. We'll find out which ones when we come back. Also, we will hear back from Ms. Cindy Ramos, whether Ms. Cindy Ramos Davidson, whether or not she will take another poll and talk to her members. We'll be right back.
6 months since the Senate has done anything. Texans out of work and getting sick, small businesses shuttering. And John Cornyn, no action, no leadership. But when his party bosses call, he jumps to rush through a Supreme Court nominee.
I'm MJ Hagar. I did 3 tours in Afghanistan, earned a Purple Heart, and I'm raising 2 kids in the middle of a pandemic. And John thinks I'm gonna get pushed around in Washington like he has?
I approved this message because it's about time Texas had a senator as tough as we are.
As our region continues to face financial difficulties due to the pandemic, El Paso Electric is here to put you in contact with the support you may need. Our partners at Project Amistad offer utility bill assistance to low-income customers that live within El Paso city limits. For New Mexico customers, the New Mexico Human Services Department may also be able to provide help with bill payment. It's important that you call us to learn about all the payment options and resources available to you. For a full list of customer assistance programs, please visit epelectric.com.
I'm worried about the future for our kids. I'm worried that we're off track. We all want nice things, but we've got to pay for them. And we're getting further and further in debt with no end in sight. Call it cost overruns, poor planning, or lack of accountability. It still ends up in the back of the taxpayers who are just plain maxed out. That's why I'm running for mayor. Enough. I'm Oscar Leeser, and I approve this message.
Nancy Pelosi and radical liberals have a plan. Raise taxes, kill oil and gas, gun control, and they're counting on Xochitl Torres Small to get it done. Small votes with Pelosi 95% of the time and earned a D from the NRA. That's why Pelosi is spending millions to bring her back, because she's one of them. Stop Pelosi, stop the liberals, stop Xochitl Torres Small. Congressional Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra. Joining us is El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. Also joining us is Hispanic Chamber of Commerce CEO Cindy Ramos Davidson. Now, the judge's order triggered a series of legal action. This right here, where I'm holding, is actually a lawsuit naming El Paso County and the judge because of the shutdown order. It lists a number of restaurants calling on the judge to rescind his shutdown order, but a group of doctors issued a statement today. They issued one of their own, calling on Mayor Margo to enforce the judge's order to shut down all non-essential services to stem the surge of COVID-19. I want to turn to you, Ms. Cindy Ramos Davidson, and ask you precisely repeat the question that the judge asked you right before we went to break. Would you be willing to put a poll out to see just how many of your members are willing to shut down for 2 weeks so that we can get a grasp on what's happening here in El Paso with the COVID-19 numbers?
We've already started the survey process, and we expect it to go out anyway on Monday. We wanted to get a better feel now that the shutdown had gone into effect in the enforcement to see what we could do. Our survey doesn't just go out to members, it goes out to all our distribution, which is businesses all across the community. And I want it to be really clear that we are here to try to be a connector and a convener and to be able to share the voice of small business. We recognize the judge and the mayor and the challenges they have. We understand firsthand. We're all affected. All of us are touched by this. But I think the challenge we have is, how do I respond to the young lady who called me the other day in absolute tears that said, my daughter's in the hospital, my business is all I have, now I have to shut down, I'm faced with losing my daughter and my business, and she bawled. You know, I understand where she's at. I recognize that heartfelt. We hear it every day. And we're just trying to be a voice of what we're hearing on the ground floor, because sometimes that small minority women and veteran-owned business doesn't get heard. Even though we may be on task force at a city or county level, and we have two wonderful, great programs with the county and the city where we're giving out money to businesses, it's just not going to be enough, because businesses are truly struggling and they understand the challenge. They recognize what needs to be done, but they want to be able to have a voice and how to do it. But they felt that it was just a shutdown. They didn't have a grace period. They didn't have time to plan on how to adapt again to the shutdown. They recognize that the judge and everyone that's in political power are doing the very best they can, but they're also concerned that it's on the backs of small minority women and veteran-owned businesses. The big box retailers are still open. The larger stores are open. The numbers show, yes, they're coming from stores, but they're not coming from the lady who's about to lose her business, or the little nail salon that went from $20,000 to $5,000, or the beauty salon that went from $6,000 to nothing. I mean, that's not where the spread is coming from. And I think that's their bigger concern, is they feel that they are being used as that conduit. And if they're going to shut down, then everybody needs to shut down. And it needs to be fair and equitable with everyone.
Judge, the recurring theme is the lack of communication between you and the mayor, and that's what leads to all this confusion. I asked you before we went to break, is there a way that both you and the mayor can come together in a unified voice and let El Pasoans know exactly what's expected of them, A, and secondly, are you paying any close attention to the smaller businesses and the different needs that they have versus the big box stores?
Well, first of all, just to be clear, the essential businesses are defined by the federal government, not by us. And so there's nothing that I could do or anybody could do with respect to essential businesses. Those are driven. I mean, and it's almost unbelievable. You have a liquor store, for example, under the essential businesses, and it's something that we can't control. What I do know is that it's very difficult to wait any time or more time in order to do this. And then I was just asking to say, you know, let's come together. And I can tell you, we're gaining more and more traction from incredible businesses that are now supporting the shutdown. Important businesses here in our community have joined the side of, let's do the healthcare first, because it's a matter of timing. That's all it is. It's not so more for the economy than being more for public health. It's what's the right timing? Where do you put the intensity? If you remember, we started with public health leading the charge and then trying everything we could to minimize businesses. The reason we started opening businesses in the economy was because we started focusing on public health. We were able to start, flattening the curve. And when things started looking better, we opened businesses. And that's not the singular situation. As you know, some of the highest numbers are in the border counties. We're not even the highest in some of the border counties like Hidalgo. And so we have a dynamic that is just very difficult to understand, and it's very complicated because we have an incredible, beautiful relationship with our neighbors to the south, with Doña Ana. I found out this morning that Hudspeth and Culberson have hit the highest numbers now. And so you have a regional situation that it's hard to pinpoint and say, who do we help and who don't we help? All I know is that if our hospitals get saturated and any businessman had to go to the hospital because he had chest pains, and before, if you had chest pains, you go right to the front of the building, to the line. Right now, everyone is vulnerable. Anybody right now, right at this very moment, has to go to an emergency, you're going to be put in the back of the line. And how do you do that? And all I'm saying is, let's slow down the process. Let's slow down the mobility. It's a 2-week period. If everybody focuses in the right direction and we work together, I think we're going to be able to do something together in this partnership between the economy, the business world, and the public health. But when you talk about getting phone calls, how about all the people, all the COVID nurses and doctors that have gotten COVID? And they're out of that opportunity to be able to be at work, and they can't be at work. So it's a very difficult situation. And if anybody focuses in this moment, in this time, focuses on the order instead of what we need to do to save lives, it's just a wrong conversation. And I can tell you that I will talk to the mayor, but I think that, as you see, when you say that communication broke down, the proof of the pudding is, look at where he is away from the spectrum of where I'm at. And I'm not saying that's wrong. That's his decision. But I couldn't afford to be at such a wide spectrum and try to convince him about moving towards the public health side at this point in time, when I was told that it wasn't, that the curfew wouldn't even touch or wouldn't even continue. If you know, the curfew was actually a shutdown after 10. It was a shutdown, just like what we're doing now is a full shutdown. So this is where we're at in this conundrum of trying to just slow things down. It's that football player that has a broken ankle, and you take him out of the game so he can finish the rest of the season. That's all we're doing. We're just pulling back so that the businesses, I'd rather a business hold off for 3 weeks than be in January, February with numbers like the ones we have. We've got the flu season coming up. We've got COVID numbers coming up. Another strain of COVID is a possibility. We've got Thanksgiving coming up. This is an element for the perfect storm.
Judge,
let's give the perfect storm.
Let's give Ms. Cindy Ramos.
What do we do?
Let's give Ms. Cindy
Keep
Ramos
going
Davidson
forward. The status quo didn't work.
Let's give Ms. Cindy Ramos Davidson an opportunity to respond. Your response, ma'am?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
Your response to what the judge just said?
You know, I think we all have to come to a realization that sometimes your worst enemy can be yourself, and that we all have to reprogram ourselves in our brains with positive ideas and thoughts to replace all the negativity talk out there, because it is about saving lives. As people, process, and businesses, it all comes together. And somehow or another, within all of this political arena, within our community, with statewide and nationwide, we have lost that sense of humanity somehow, and we have to figure out how to get back to it. Our voice is from the small minority women-owned veteran business on the ground floor that has those people in the hospital. We can't thank enough the first responders and all the healthcare providers for what they're doing, because if they weren't there, the businesses wouldn't be available. I think what we need to do is sit down and talk to the businesses that are most effective with the mayor and judge. Let them hear directly. They will have an answer. Business people are unbelievably resourceful. They live in the world of possibility. And I just don't think any of us have done a good enough job to sit down there and say, how do we pivot? How do we do it? How do we shut down for 2 weeks and still give you what you need? There's just not going to be enough money out there with the grants we're administrating to the county and to the city to help the many requests that we have. And now that there's no more PPP and EIDL and federal government money, there's no other resources to come through. But I can guarantee you our community is resilient, and we will figure out a way to do this. But we've got to stop thinking about me, you, them. It's all about us. We are far more capable together as a unified community to resolve this than we are in separate camps.
Judge, is there anything that the county and the city can do to come up with more dollars for businesses that'll hurt if the shutdown order obviously goes any further than 2 weeks?
Well, we still have the money with the CARES Act, and we're trying to do as much as we can to see if there's any money that could go directly. We'll be talking a lot about that perhaps this Monday and going forward. I do know that, like in my case, some of the employees went back and they reinitiated their unemployment, and most of them were able to reinstate their unemployment immediately that had already been working. So I think we need to look at it, like once again, I'm more than willing if we just back off what's happening to the saturation of the hospitals to give us enough time to do these other things that Cindy would like to do and the chambers would like to do. It's just a matter of giving them a little bit of breathing room, knowing that one of the most critical things that happened all over in New York, Chicago, when everything went down, and there were not only a shutdown like ours, but shutdowns of almost every possible situation, was when the hospitals got saturated. It is one of the most, I remember that the governor said, if we hit 15%, we have to relook at things. Well, my goodness, 15%, I mean, we're at 100% capacity. We have no more room. We're building morgues. We've got all these situations happening where we've got tents outside of the hospital transporting people. And so I would love to be able to say, okay, let's look at this. I would love that. As a small business owner, I understand that. I would like to do that. Unfortunately, it is so critical at this time that every single day that we have mobility and things are open. And I understand. I mean, it's extremely difficult for me to see a small business get hurt when a big business doesn't, but I don't control that. I don't control essential businesses. The federal government controls that and decides who essential businesses are. And so if I want to step forward with a drastic, they told me we need something drastic. What are my tools? An order that says a 2-week stay at home. That's all. That's what I have in my toolbox. And it's an order, and it's not right that people decide to respect certain things and not others. This is an order is a law until the court says different. And for where the confusion is, people trying to interpret the order. The order is very clear as to what we can and cannot do. The interpretation of the order and deciding that I can or cannot, that's not for anybody. I do have the authority to issue the order, but it's in the court that determines whether or not I can proceed with the order, not in public comments, not by people saying that Paxton's order is an order. It's an opinion. It's an opinion, and we all know that. So if I have the authority to issue an order, I think it should be respected, because next time that somebody has an order and you decide we don't like that order, well, that's part of our due diligence of to be able to do those things. And I did them under all the legal, orientation I could possibly have. And the interpretation was I couldn't do that. What happens to the court system? Can you imagine that everything you didn't like, you just decided not to do? Or would you wait to go to court to find out whether or not I can proceed?
Judge, on that
note, we're at this point. It's at the courts. It's Judge, not in public opinion.
On that note,
whether I can or cannot go forward.
On that note, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for your time, Judge Ricardo Samaniego. Thank you so much for your time, Cindy Ramos Davidson. I appreciate you spending your evening with us.
You're welcome. Call our office. We have grant money to give out.
Okay, on that note, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for trying your best to collaborate and help us, help Cindy and myself sort of express our ideas, and thank you for that. Sir. We are a very collaborative community. And we need to move forward. We just have a very critical situation.
Yes, sir, we do. Yes, sir, we do.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for joining us. I hope we're able to clarify the shutdown order, why it was issued, and the response. We all have a personal responsibility to protect ourselves and our loved ones. I'm Saul Saenz, and this has been ABC 7 Extra. Good night y buenas noches.